الله أكبر الله أكبر.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. With regard to the protesters, there's a lot of controversy because we know that not everyone rebelling against the regime or taking the leader by the hand, if you will, is calling for Sharia as a solution. But from amongst the protesters, many of them know that Islam is the solution for their society. We know from even Kafir scientific studies that 95% of Egyptians think that Islam should play a major role in the government. But what should our stance be with regard to these protests and the protesters themselves, Sheikh, inshallah?
I am aware that some scholars in Saudi Arabia spoke out against the protesters. You are not allowed to speak out against people who are trying to bring down a tyrannical regime.
No.
Because these regimes are there to maintain the status quo of kufrdom, of kufr. They are not there to bring about Islam. They are there to maintain a status quo, and this status quo is kufr. So these scholars who spoke out against the protesters, they are also a part of the Dajjal status quo.
No.
They are wicked scholars, and they are called ulama as-su. And they are there to maintain the status quo. They are not there for Allah and His Rasul. They use their knowledge to cement the thrones of the apostate regimes. So I'm not surprised that there are people out there who call themselves scholars, who are speaking in favor of Hosni Mubarak and all the other tyrants that are penciled out to be toppled. Because the Ummah have penciled out some tyrants to be toppled. Hosni Mubarak happens to be the second tyrant that was ticked off to be toppled because of his satanic regime of giving his wallah to the Crusaders and the Zionists and helping them to crush Islam and Muslims. Now these scholars who spoke out against the protesters, they have no right to do so. There is no evidence from Quran or Sunnah to say that protesting is haram. On the contrary, the Rasul said, "Man ra'a minkum munkaran falyughayyirhu biyadihi, fa in lam yastati' fa bilisanihi, فَإِنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِقَلْبِهِ وَذَلِكَ عَدْءَفُ الْإِيمَانِ." Anyone who sees an evil, let him stop it with his hands. If he cannot, let him condemn it with his tongue. If he cannot, let him hate it in his heart. And this is the weakest level of faith. Meaning, if you see evil and you didn't even hate it in your heart, it means you have no faith, no iman. These protesters are speaking out against tyranny and oppression with their tongues. They are trying to topple an apostate regime. As I said previously, nobody in our Paltalk room bat an eyelid when they see these protests, because for 10 years we have been preaching the same message, and we did not budge from our message that these regimes are apostate regimes. They are cursed and they are despised by Allah. If Allah despises you, how can you survive? Allah Ta'ala said in Surah 17 verse 81, وَقُلْ جَاءَ الْحَقْ وَزَهَقَ الْبَاطِلِ إِنَّ الْبَاطِلَ كَانَ زَهُوقًا. Say truth has come and falsehood has vanished, and falsehood by nature is a vanishing thing. I hope that the protests are not calling for democracy, because democracy is the greatest shirk. It's the religion of the Satan. Democracy means the government of the people, for the people, and by the people. The MPs and the senators, they make laws to govern the people. We do not believe in a democracy. We believe in a theocracy, the government of Allah, for Allah, and by Allah. Therefore, we do not want to replace one kufr with another kufr. We do not want to replace one oppression with another. We do not want to replace zulm, the zulm of tyranny and oppression, with democracy. That is just replacing one man-made system with another man-made system. The protesters have to demand Sharia. If they demand anything else other than Sharia, it means that their protest is not sincere and it is flawed, because they did not demand the implementation of the Sharia. Why do you want to protest and sacrifice your life to get rid of one man-made system with another man-made system? you are only getting rid of one batil with another batil, and this would be a sad case, because Rasul said those who fight for La ilaha illallah, only they can be classified as mujahideen. Over to you, Muhammad.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. On another vein, I wonder, Sheikh, if you could explain to us whether or not anything of these events has been prophesied by Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Meaning, do we have any authentic narrations, hadith or ayat, that can help us understand these processes that are unfolding before us today? Inshallah.
There's a very famous hadith by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which he said that Nubuwwah, the Prophet was explaining to us Islamic leadership and the stages that we will go through with this Islamic leadership. And it appears as if it is 6 stages. The first stage, the Prophet said, will be prophethood. The prophethood will be among you for 23 years. Now, after the prophethood is called Nubuwwah. The prophethood is called Nubuwwah. After this Nubuwwah, you'll have Khilafah. And this Khilafah, this caliphate will be a Rashida, upright caliphate, a rightly guided caliphs. Now, this Khilafah, which is upright, which is a Rashida, it will be among you for 30 years. So when you study the rightly guided caliphs, you'll see Abu Bakr ruled for 2 years, Omar 10 years, that's 12 years. And Uthman, he ruled for 12 years, that makes it 24 years. So you have 6 years left. And Ali ruled for 5.5 years, that makes it 29.5 years. And the last 6 months, to make it the rightly guided caliphs, will be Hassan. He ruled for 6 months. So the rightly guided caliph, it stopped at Hassan, because the Prophet said after this Khilafah al-Rashida, which will rule for 30 years, you will have mulk. So the first Malik in Islam was Muawiyah. Muawiyah was the first king. He became a king because he handed the power to his son Yazid. It is worthy of mentioning that when Hassan was the caliph, he handed the power to Muawiyah because Muawiyah had more maturity and more experience than him in regards to leadership, because he ruled Syria for 20 long years. Now, when Hassan handed the power to Muawiyah, the Muslims were united once again, and because they were fighting amongst themselves, they were able to pay attention to the kuffar. And Muawiyah was able to conquer the whole of North Africa, with the exception of Egypt. Egypt was conquered during the caliphate of Umar ibn al-Khattab. And the caliphate of Muawiyah brought amazing success and wealth to the Ummah, and the Muslims were shocked. They couldn't understand how comes we were starving just yesterday and today we are so wealthy. This is the caliphate of Muawiyah. It was extremely successful. Now, the Rasul said that this mulk, this kingship, will be among you until Allah lifts it up. Now, after it's lifted up, then you'll have evil leaders. Evil leaders. Now, this mulk of Muawiyah that he established, it was with Shia. And when the Abbasid took, his mulk was called the Umayyad dynasty. Now, after the Umayyad dynasty collapsed, you had the Abbasids. Even they governed with Sharia. You had caliphs like Ma'mun, who was tyrannical, but Ahmad ibn Hanbal was unable to make takfir on him because he governed the people with Sharia. Secondly, he did jihad. Thirdly, he did not take side the crusaders to kill Muslims like the leaders that we see today. The leaders of today cannot be compared to Ma'mun. They don't implement Sharia, and they take side, they don't do jihad. They are Khawarij, they kill Muslims and leave alone the kuffar. And yes, they don't do jihad, they don't implement the Sharia, and they take sides with the crusaders in killing Muslims. Ma'mun did not do any of these three things, so because of that, even though he was a Mu'tazilite, Ahmad ibn Hanbal was unable to make takfir on him because he did jihad, he implemented the Sharia, and he did not take sides with the kuffar to kill Muslims. Instead, he killed the kuffar, he did not take sides with them in killing Muslims. Now, there are some people today who would like to say that the leaders of today who dismantle the Sharia and take sides with the crusaders in killing the Muslims, they are still inside the fold of Islam. This is not the case. They are not inside the fold of Islam because Ibn Kathir and Ibn Taymiyyah said it is known of Islam by necessity And it is the ijma, the agreement of all the Muslims, that whosoever dismantles the Sharia, that person is a kafir. Ibn Kathir went further. He said he should be fought until he returns to the Sharia of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Now we are living in the fourth stage of the Muslim leadership. And the fourth stage is the worst stage. That stage is evil leaders who will dismantle Sharia, the Prophet said. And after this fourth stage, which is the worst stage, the caliphate will come back. Caliphate based upon Quran and Sunnah, a caliphate which is Rashida, a caliphate which will govern the Muslims, the Sharia of Allah Ta'ala. So we are living in the fourth stage right now, and we are waiting for the fifth and final stage to come, and that is the Sharia caliphate, which is based upon the Sharia. So these apostate regimes that you see will be toppling like a domino effect. The Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam prophesied it in a very famous hadith found in At-Tirmidhi, that the Muslim leadership will go through these 5 stages: Nubuwa, prophethood; Khilafa, Rashida, which was the caliphate of Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, and Hassan. And then you'll have Mulk, kingship, and the first king in Islam was Muawiyah. And after that, the kingship will be dismantled, and then you'll have evil leaders, apostate leaders. This is the era we are living under right now. The leaders of Egypt and Jordan and the House of Saud, Pakistan, all these leaders have given their allegiance to the Crusaders and helped them to kill Muslims and helped them to conquer Muslim countries. And these Crusaders, when they conquer Muslim countries, they plunder the natural resources and rape Muslim women, and they revile and defile the Quran, desecrate the masajid. And these leaders, they are untouched, they are unnerved by what is happening. They were the ones who helped these Crusaders to conquer Muslim countries in the first place. So you are living in the worst stage of the Muslim leadership, and that is the apostate regimes will be ruling over you. But the Rasul said there will be light at the end of the tunnel. It's not all gloom and doom. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and that is the caliphate shall come back. So we are, inshallah, we'll hope that we live in the time when we will see these apostate regimes topple like a domino effect, and the caliphate comes back the way the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had prophesied it.
Inshallah, Ameen. Jazakallah khair, Shaykh.